Hey everybody, what is up? Before you downvote and call me a hypocrite for releasing another Paragon video after saying that I was out of Paragon for at least a while, I am still out of Paragon for a while. I have been paying attention to the state of the game though, as well as what has been happening in the community, because I still do have a investment into the game both monetarily as well as emotionally. And after seeing that the Paragon Competitive League in the EU has decided to not broadcast the tournament or any of that stuff due to the state of the game, I thought to myself, damn, what's going on now? Because for the longest time, I thought the Paragon Community Leagues, US and EU, were doing pretty good. They seemingly were super supportive of the game, super supportive of the direction, had multiple teams and successful streams, live streams and videos and such. But I guess the EU, while normally having 16 to 20 teams to work with, only had 5. And I'm just like, wow, that really says something about Paragon's state of the game, at least in my eyes. And after doing some research, it seems to me that Epic has a very unhealthy relationship with the idea that Paragon matches need to be 30 minutes or even less than that. And normally I would be okay with that, but the way they are going about it to try to get these matches to be as quick and short as possible is by changing the things that you shouldn't change in order to increase the speed of a match. They're changing things like Orb Prime spawning faster and with less health. Raptors, the way they spawn and the way they work. The fact that teams will just rush over to Raptors at 4 minutes now, meaning that laning only lasts for around 4 to 5 minutes. Towers are now squishier than ever, and they have no plans on really ever buffing them or doing anything exciting with them or changing them in any way. And now we have changes to Orb Prime cards, where basic attacks and abilities do 20% more damage. When you're out of combat for 6 seconds, you start regenerating your health and mana by 3% of your max every second. And then you've got, for 30 seconds, ranged minions will instantly kill any minions that they attack for 30 seconds. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, they really buffed the Orb Prime buff to the point where once you get it, you're going to be able to push so much, so effectively, that it's going to be a very quick game. 1 or 2 Orb Primes is probably all that's going to be needed now. And the problem with this is that people still aren't going to be able to experience their full builds, because when a game ends at 25, 30, 35 minutes, most folks aren't going to be at 60 CP. And if you are 60 CP by that point, then you have been hyper-fed. End of story. But it strikes me as very odd that Epic wants these short matches, and yet they also don't seemingly want it to be a MOBA, because we have the fast movement speed, the small map, random powerful buffs that spawn every 2 minutes, jungle and Orb Prime that has continually been nerfed into the ground. They spawn faster, they have less health, their buffs are a lot stronger than they used to be. Towers that remain as weak as ever, to the point where after, 5 minutes, towers lose their innate armor, and then you can literally just shred them down, and you're like level 3 or 4, and it really doesn't take all that long to just blow through them at that level. It's insane! So here's my opinion on that. The best way to decrease the amount of time it takes to play a match is to increase the speed and the rate of which you progress through the game from 0 to 60 CP. And I've said this months and months and months ago. In fact, this very video that you're watching right now is old video footage from another video that I did many months ago, last year, probably sometime during the summer, and I talked about the very same issues and how to fix it. I'm going to say it again. The rate at which you gain experience and the rate at which you hit 60 CP needs to be faster, because that's the way you get naturally fast games, not this artificial speed bullshit where everything's just fast for the sake of being fast. It doesn't feel natural, it feels forced, and it's not fun, at least in my eyes. Now, I have been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm lately, and I've learned through playing that game how they've designed it in such a way to get their match times between 15 and 30 minutes, while at the same time having those really beefy towers and being able to max out your character at level 20 in terms of unlockable skills and talents before the match hits 25 minutes in length. And it's because of that that the matches can be so short, because everybody's already at full power within that short amount of time. And you know what makes that possible? The system that they have in Heroes of the Storm that allows you to share experience with their team, not only through the things that you do during a match, but the things that everybody does in a match. It's the kind of system that makes laning relevant throughout the entire match, because you could have somebody at top lane pushing by themselves while the rest of the team does their objective stuff or their team fighting stuff, and meanwhile that guy is up there pushing minions, taking minion camps, and occasionally ganking, all the while he's staying in lane and making sure that his minions push the tower, and he's soaking up a ton of experience. And you can see in the stats there's a bunch of contributed experience from this one individual player, and I've had some matches where at least myself have contributed 20 to 30% of the team's entire experience. This allows my team to do other things like objective play, team play, and all of that other stuff, while at the same time I can lane. Now imagine if Paragon had a system like this, where if somebody wanted to go off in jungle or push a lane and not be with their team, would not be a detriment in and of itself, because they are still actively contributing to the team's overall strength. Now that does work better in something like Heroes of the Storm because there is no currency, it's basically just leveling. However, making it so that you can get some global CXP alongside XP I think would work, as long as it was at a reduced rate and not like completely in full, because I think at that point leveling would be ridiculously fast, to the point where matches would last like 20 minutes like on average, and that's I think a little bit too fast. But I feel like that's the way to make matches shorter in a natural, fun way. Not by making everything around you weak and squishy, but by making you and your team stronger faster. Another interesting aspect of Heroes of the Storm that helps make its speed more natural is that when you take a minion camp, it adds those minions to your own lane, to your own minions. They become part of your minion wave, and it's awesome. And that happens with every single jungle camp in Heroes of the Storm for every single map there is. Even if it's like the Orb Prime version of Heroes of the Storm, like that will still go into your lane and it'll just go straight for the towers, straight for the enemy base, and is super powerful. Not because it's a buff to everybody just through raw stats and healing, but because it's its own entity that once you've killed, it becomes your own to use against the enemy. And I'm not saying Paragon should have anything like that. However, it is important to notice that it's likely because of that aspect of Heroes of the Storm that they can get away with having those tankier towers and those other aspects of the game that you think would normally slow it down, and yet is still as fast as it is. Epic has certainly been getting a lot of feedback lately, not only from the community and the forums and Reddit community, but from the Paragon Competitive League themselves, which I know they're just, you know, basically a bunch of dudes doing it for fun, but still, it says something. And I hope they take that feedback to heart and really internalize it in such a way so that they don't feel demoralized making changes in the future, but they embrace the changes and look into other alternate, more natural alternatives to speeding up the match, like the ones that I've listed in this video. That pretty much wraps up my thoughts on that. I'm not going to be making Paragon videos all the time like I used to be. They will be a seldom thing when I have a thought about the game that I want to share. And today I wanted to give my opinions on Epic wanting to make Paragon a 30-minute match game, and that's going to be very difficult for them. They're going to have to accept the fact that a lot of things need to be radically different. Maybe to the point of having a whole new map entirely, or, you know, bringing back Legacy. But that'll likely never, sadly, happen. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more random Paragon thoughts here and there, as well as Heroes of the Storm content and Dauntless content coming up later this month, early May. If you have an opinion of your own, make sure to drop them down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of Paragon wanting to be a 30-minute match game. Let me know what you think of Epic's decisions regarding the future, and we'll have a cool discussion about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.